everybody. Welcome to the Banyan Books podcast. I'm your host, Ross McKeechee, and today I'm very excited that we're being joined by Robin Sharma. Now, before we get to his formal introduction, I'll just make our usual Banyan announcements. First off, acknowledging that although the physical location of Banyan Books and Sound is in Vancouver, we have people joining us from all over the world. Now, we like to acknowledge that Banyan Books and Sound is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Banyan Books is in its 50th anniversary year this year, so that's 50 years as Canada's spiritual and healing resource, local and independent since day one. So just encouraging everybody, please support your local independent bookstores. Every time you make a purchase from Banyan, it helps to support these kinds of amazing events and programming that we've got going on for you every week. Okay, our distinguished guest today, who we're very excited to have, Mr. Robin Sharma. He is a globally respected humanitarian and author who, for over a quarter of a century, has been devoted to helping human beings realize their native gifts. Widely considered one of the world's top leadership and personal optimization advisors, his clients include famed billionaires, professional sports superstars, and many Fortune 100 companies. His clients include NASA, Microsoft, Nike, General Electric, FedEx, Starbucks, Yale University, IBM Watson, and the Young Presidents Organization. As a presenter, Robin Sharma possesses the rare ability to electrify an audience while delivering uncommonly original and tactical insights that lead to individuals doing their best work, teams providing superb results, and organizations becoming unbeatable. A former lawyer, our guest quit his job and self-published his first book, Mega Living, at a Kinko's copy shop, and his mother edited it. He stored 2,000 copies in his kitchen and gave them to family, friends, and colleagues. His second book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, was also originally self-published until he was discovered in a bookstore by former HarperCollins president Ed Carson. The book and the series that followed have now become one of the world's most successful publishing franchises. The author's #1 bestsellers, such as The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, The Greatness Guide, The Leader Who Had No Title, and The 5 a.m. Club, are available in over 92 languages, making him one of the most broadly read writers alive today. On top of his books and speaking engagements, his social media posts reach over 600 million people a year, making him a true global phenomenon for helping people do brilliant work, thrive amid change, and realize their highest leadership capacities within the organization so that personal responsibility, productivity, ingenuity, and mastery soars. As a humanitarian dedicated to serving others, our distinguished guest is the founder of the Robin Sharma Foundation for Children, which raises funds from around the world and donates them to children's causes. He is in conversation with us today, speaking about his latest book, The Everyday Hero Manifesto. In this groundbreaking book, Sharma makes his transformational system available to anyone who is ready for undefeatable positivity, monumental productivity, deep spiritual freedom, and a life of helping others. A very personal book. It's part memoir of a life richly lived, part instruction manual for virtuoso grade performance, and part handbook for spiritual freedom in an age of high velocity change. To learn more about Robin Sharma and his work, you can visit his website, which is robinsharma.com. You can also follow him on Instagram at Robin Sharma. So at Robin Sharma. To purchase his book, you can go to the Banyan website, www.banyan.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Robin Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robin.
Thank you, Ross. It's great to be with you.
Um, just just to start off with, this book, I mean, it is epic in its proportions and messaging. And I understand you wrote it during the COVID lockdown. So I'm just curious what the inspiration was for writing and what the process was like for you.
Well, yes, it was 16 months during the pandemic. That's when I wrote the Everyday Hero Manifesto. And the inspiration came from, for years, people were asking me, could you distill your methodology that you teach to these titans of industry, these sports superstars, members of royalty, these movement makers? And so I thought, I almost treated it as if it was my last book. I almost treated it as if I could share everything I could possibly share on personal mastery, on exponential productivity, on being your best creative self, and living a life of wisdom and meaning and fulfillment and impact, what would I write? And that really was the Everyday Hero Manifesto. And I usually spend a lot of time traveling, as you suggested in that extremely generous introduction, but we're pretty much all grounded. And so it was almost like I returned to being an artist. And when I first started out as a writer, and I had this incredible ritual and routine, and I'd get up and I'd have my coffee, and then I'd lock myself away. Before I usually listen to some country music, because that always gets me into flow state. There's a chapter in the book about why I listen to heartbreak country music. And then I'd lock myself away and I'd just write. And it was just it's just been such a quiet time, not the usual complexity of my life. And it just allowed me to go very deep. And I probably did 20 different rewrites of the book. It was really a painstaking process. It was hard, but ultimately it was really satisfying to get it done. And especially now that it's out into the world.
Yes. 100 chapters, and each one is, I mean, I was captivated. It's just so inspiring reading each one and moving. And I was really moved by how much you shared personally. Now, one of the things you mentioned, you worked with so many of these movement makers, billionaires, superstars, leaders, pros from around the world. What is it about them that makes them excel? And as an everyday person, how can we apply those principles in our life? I mean, that's what the book covers, but in brief, what do these people have? What are they doing?
Well, I think you make a key point, which is, yes, we have the Nelson Mandelas and the Elon Musks and the movement makers of the world, but the Everyday Hero Manifesto is really about each of us reclaiming our heroism. And we don't have to lead a country or lead a nation or lead a company to have an impact on the world and live a beautiful life. And so the book has all these models and these frameworks and these tactics and these methodologies. But to answer your question, a lot of the super performers that I've been mentoring over a quarter of a century, and there's a chapter in there, the 13 traits of the billionaires I've mentored. But these are some of the common traits that they have. Number one, they almost have like a foolhardy belief in their and faithfulness in their vision. So they come up with an idea and everyone laughs at them. They say it's never been done. And that just actually electrifies them to pursue it even more. Because as I say in the book, if you're not being laughed at a lot, you're not doing very much. And every visionary is initially ridiculed before they're revered. I would say as well, these people are often very, very fit. So they understand that getting very fit allows you to have more energy, and energy is even more valuable than intelligence. You can have a great mission, but if you don't have the execution energy to fulfill it, nothing's going to happen. I'd say number three, these people love to learn. Education is inoculation against disruption. I've got to say, Banyan Books, I've been in that bookstore. I've spent wonderful afternoons in there, and I love, love, love reading, but education is inoculation against disruption. And victims love entertainment, leaders love education. So these titans of industry and the elite performers, they understand that the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about your domain, you can distribute more value into the marketplace, which allows you to win. These people don't really get brought down by energy vampires. And that's a big theme of the book as well. It's you can change the world or you can be around toxic people. You don't get to do both. And so it's really important to populate your life with people who understand you, champion you, bring up your energy, and help you. I'd also say these people absolutely relentless, Ross.
Mm.
Incredibly relentless. It's just most of us, we hit a wall, we wave the white towel of surrender. These people get knocked around, bloodied, kicked, and they just keep on going. So those would be some of the traits.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. And another thing, early in the book, you share a personal story that as a kid, you were teased, you were made fun of by a lot of other kids, and in fact, a lot of your teachers predicted that you weren't going to amount to anything. But then there was maybe one of your first mentors besides your parents that came into your life, Cora Greenaway. Can you tell us about her and how she impacted your life?
Wow. I think all it takes is one person to believe in you and to celebrate your gifts and your talents to redirect the way the rest of your life unfolds. And for me, that woman was my grade 5 history teacher, Cora Greenaway. And you're right. It was a time when people didn't give me much of a chance. They didn't think I would amount to anything. Not that I'm saying I currently have amounted to that much, but she really saw something in me, and she said, if you work hard and you persist and you stay true to yourself and you do the right things, then good things are going to happen to you. And I think she was my teacher for 1 or 2 years, but she was like, she shone a light on me when that was something that had been pretty rare in my life. And I would say roughly 5 years ago, I actually did some research on Cora Greenaway. I was wondering whatever happened to her. And I realized when she was a young woman, she was a member of the Dutch resistance, and she would go behind enemy lines and help children that were being taken to Nazi death camps. She would free them and take care of them and, free them like she freed me. And so the second chapter of the Everyday Hero Manifesto is all about mentorship. And I talk about what I learned from her, and she's just a remarkable woman. And the picture in the book, I can grab the book if you want, but it's when she was 101 years old,
Yes.
which was, do you mind if I grab the
Please,
book and
please.
find
Yeah,
the
yeah.
picture? Because it's kind of a way I can honor her.
For sure. While you're doing that, I'll let our audience know Robin's going to be taking questions from you. So please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A tab, and towards the end of the interview, we'll get to those. There she is, 101 years old.
101 years old when that photograph was taken. So perfect example of an everyday hero.
Wonderful. So for those of us who maybe haven't worked with a mentor or had mentors in our life, do you have any suggestions for how do we go about finding a mentor, and how important is that, do you think?
Well, I think mentors are incredibly important. And I've had some amazing mentors in my life, but they don't have to be alive. So when you read, there's a chapter in the book about the 13 virtue habit installer where I talk about Benjamin Franklin and about how he took, these 13 virtues and he would live each one every week, and, like patience and humility and honesty, etc. But what I'm suggesting, Ross, is Ben Franklin has been a mentor of mine. One of my favorite books is Steve Jobs' biography by Walter Isaacson. He's been a mentor of mine. I'm here in Rome, and yesterday I went to my favorite bookstore and picked up another copy of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, the benevolent Roman emperor, who his book, the Meditations, is on the bedside of a lot of the world's leaders. So we can have mentors through books, we can have mentors through podcasts, we can have mentors through online courses. And I think, we live in a messy world right now. When we're born, we're possibilitarians, and we have these bright dreams, and we have these fires in our bellies. And a lot of us, we get to 35, 45, 55, and we're busy being busy. And we've forgotten about our gifts and our talents and our genius and who we can become. And having a mentor through books, or maybe a live mentor that can inspire you and show you what's possible. So I think mentors are extraordinarily valuable.
One of the things that I was really fascinated with, I was madly writing notes, was the peak productivity pyramid. And the first three items, you've got the lifetime big five, which are the five central aims, which you'll devote
Yes.
the remainder of your days, to which you'll devote the remainder of your days. How important is it for us to have defined those aims in our life?
So that's chapter 125. And the what I tried to do in that chapter is distill my best methodologies on productivity right
Mm-hmm.
there. And you're right, at the top of the pyramid, it's the lifetime big five. And I think the concept came to me when I was in South Africa. And I went on a safari, and the guide said to me, he said, we're going to look for the big five game. The lion, the elephant, the rhinoceros, the water buffalo, and one more. And so when I went back to my hotel room, I started journaling. I love journaling. I asked myself this fundamentally life-changing question. I said, what are my big five game? What are the five priorities I must chase down for the remainder of my life, for me to feel on my last hour of my last day that I lived a fulfilling life? And I think it is really important, because execution without strategy is a fool's victory. And a lot of us are spending the best hours of our best days climbing these mountains, but what if you get to the end of your life and you realize you climbed the wrong ones? And so that first part of the pyramid is incredibly important, detecting what are my five top priorities that I want to build the rest of my life around.
I was also very interested in strategy number 3 from that pyramid, which is the heavyweight 6, which is the standard operating procedures of absolute world class, as you call it. And you give 6 habits that make us world class no matter what we're doing. Can you talk a bit about those?
Absolutely. So there's, of course, the 5 a.m. club, rising early. Look at many of the movement makers, the great poets, the great sages and saints and leaders. And not all of them, Ross, but many of them had one thing in common. They rose before the sun, and they spent a period of time setting the tone of their day. So the Spartan warriors say, sweat more in training and you'll bleed less in war. When you look at our world right now, we're in a war against the plague. We're in a war against digital distraction. We're in a war against worries and stress. And so getting up earlier and making the time to develop yourself. I know that's what Banyan Books is all about in many ways. And not only working in your mindset. In the Everyday Hero Manifesto, I say mindset is important, but that's only our psychology. And I'm sure you'll agree, we are more than just our psychology. We have hearts. We have our emotionality, and I call that our heart set. It's not just mindset and heart set, it's health set. Here's a great suggestion to win. Don't die. Take care of your health set, so you have energy and longevity, and you can spend many more years distributing your magic into the world. But it's not only mindset, heart set, and health set, there's also soul set. And what I loved about Banyan Books is there were a lot of books on spirituality I used to go through. And I think working on getting up early and working on your spirit is incredibly important as well. And that's one of the, I think, not so common things I try to do in the Everyday Hero Manifesto. It's very much about productivity and elite performance and creativity and great habits and making a difference in the world and living a beautiful life. But there's also chapters like death is just a hotel room upgrade, and a lot of spiritual things. And I talk about trauma. And so I think that's important to work on our spiritual life as well. Then there's the part of the heavyweight 6, there's the second wind workout. If you believe that exercise is powerful, why would you only do it in the morning? At the end of your workday, go walk in the woods, or go walk by the ocean and take a second bit of exercise to set you up for a great day. Another one of the habits I like to talk about, the 60-minute student. We live in a world that celebrates entertainment, right? We spend our days like looking at videos. I mean, some of the videos that get 40 million views, I don't quite get it, but it's right. But if you look at the titans of industry, the super creators, the people, and not only the super creators, people who are living joyful lives. These people, they love to learn, they love to read, they love to grow, they love to do difficult things. So 60 minutes every day spent in studying and developing yourself, incredibly important, because your income always reflects your self-identity. And as you start to elevate your self-identity, you start to do even bigger things in the world.
Mm-hmm. One of the points that you hit on a lot throughout the book is the idea of looking at your work as a craft. And it's really obvious that you view what you do as a craft, and you're constantly honing it. Now it seems that word is important, as opposed to calling it a job or our work or employment. If we look at it as a craft, can you speak to that point, and how we can honor what we do as a service and a craft?
Oh, absolutely. I think a job is only a job if we choose to see it as a job. And all work has incredible dignity to it. And I find it interesting. One of the chapters in the book is the chestnut seller's doctrine. And it's this story, and there's a picture of the chestnut seller in there, but it's a story of this man who lost his business. He faced tragedy, he faced deep adversity. And then he said, well, look, I've lost everything, but I'm going to buy chestnuts and I'm going to sell them in this European square to tourists. And he said, I care about my work. I do it with great dignity. I do it with great pride. I offer these chestnuts with great love, and that gives him fulfillment. Now, you have other people in the world, rather than being an everyday hero, they're all about blame. They say, well, look, I had a difficult time. I had a divorce, or I had an illness, or the world is bad right now, or the economy is down. And it's all about like, help me. The world should help me. No, we have to help ourselves. We have power. I forget who said it. I think it was Alice Walker, but the number one way we don't have any power is thinking we don't have any. And so no matter who we are, even in the most acute of suffering, we do have the choice to pull ourselves up. And we do have the choice to handcraft better lives. I mean, the very story, I work with a lot of billionaires and very successful people in the field of in business. So many of these people grew up with nothing. So many of these people come from great poverty, but they used their human ingenuity and they exercised their agency. And when they got knocked down, they got back up. And again, they loved to learn. They learned how to build a better business. They learned how to build stronger selves. They installed the right habits, routines, and rituals. And there's a line in the book: small daily improvements, when done consistently over time, lead to stunning results. Those micro wins stack into major victories over time.
Yes. Another one of the key points, you phrase it in a number of different ways, but the essence is, you say, do your best and let your higher power, or let nature, do the rest. And being detached from the outcome. Of course, this sounds to me a lot. It's much like Krishna's teaching to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Has that book influenced you at all? Is that a book you've studied?
I wouldn't say I've studied it. Um, I think that philosophy comes from Hinduism, and it comes from Christianity and so many of the great religions of the world. I think, and I think it makes a lot of sense, because as a philosopher, I've always been struggling with, I think it's one of the great philosophical questions: is it all choice? Is it all destiny? Has it been written? And I wondered, like, how much as human beings do we get to shape our lives, or has it all been written? I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners are wondering, like, is it all destiny and karmic contracts, or can we shape our lives? And I've struggled a lot with that, or thought a lot about it. And I think a lot of life is scripted, I would say. And yet we do have incredible choice. So to your point, I would say the best we can do is the best we can do. Get up in the morning, behave like you have all the choice in the world, treat people well, under promise and over deliver, be ethical and honest, be kind to strangers, go through life with a sparkle in your eye. When you get knocked down, get back up, feel the pain and dust off the dust and just keep on going. And having said that, once you've done your best, let's say there's something you really want. You do a project and you want the project or the business or the relationship to work out. And let's say you've done everything you possibly could and it doesn't work out. That's where I say your higher power didn't want that for you, because something even better is meant for you. And the more you hardwire that thought and sensibility into your emotional, intellectual and emotional life, the more you just trust, like I landed here in Rome the other day. It's the first time it ever happened, but all my luggage was lost. And when we went to the lost and found, they said, "Oh, like you're calm about it." Some people get very upset. First of all, what are you going to do? Like it's not their fault, so you just roll with it. And the second thing is, I said to my partner, she was calm as well. I said to her, I go, "There's a reason why the luggage didn't show up here, and we might not know it, but I truly trust." And we got our luggage. Long story short on that, but I really believe that life has our best interests in mind, and when we face a difficulty, it's for a very, very good reason, even though our ego might resist it.
Thank you. One of the other things you talk about facing is fear. And I've got a funny story, or a synchronous story, I should say. A few days ago, I was reading your book and I took a break and I walked to the cafe down the street. And while I was waiting for my drink, I went and looked at the message board. And up in the top corner, there's this little piece of cardboard with a quote on it. And it was from Frank Herbert in Dune. And then I come back home and I sit down and I'm reading chapter 39, Hug the Monster. And there's that exact same quote. So I felt like, okay, I've got to bring this one up. So if I can share the quote and then ask you to comment. The quote is, "I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain." How has this quote inspired your life and work?
Well, we are taught to fear. We are schooled in. Look at our world right now. I mean, I've been doing all this media for the book, and sometimes I'm waiting and the news is on before the interview starts, and it's just, what? Like all you hear is toxic information. And so our world is built around teaching us to fear. And yet when we were little kids and intimate with our highest and best, our finest selves, we didn't fear. We said, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to be an astronaut and a poet and a hockey player." I know you're in Canada. Hockey player, and I want to be a billionaire, and I want to be a humanitarian, and a superhero. And then our parents, well-intentioned as they are, and then sometimes we go, school, and we start being programmed into fitting in and being like everyone else. And then we have these friends, sometimes it's peers, and we say, here's my dream, and we get laughed at. And then we just get this messaging. And so fear, the Dune quote is really important to me, because it's important to acknowledge the fear. And that's one thing that's one of the reasons there's a chapter in the Everyday Hero Manifesto, which is the big lie of positive thinking. And I know that's a bit of a contrarian message, but a lot of these books on positive thinking, it's like, okay, life just slammed you. See the lemonade in the lemons. It's really dangerous to do that, because what about all the emotions of, guilt and shame and anger and sorrow that you're feeling. I think it's important to feel those things and then move to positive thinking. And actually, when you do feel those things, positive thinking comes automatically because you release and clear those lower grade emotions. But fear, it's feel the fear, acknowledge it, let it pass through you, be terrified, and with shaky hands and full of terror, still go forward. And we've heard the idea before, but it's like courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is noticing the fear, being terrified, but you still go through it. And if we continue to do that, we build incredible bravery into our lives. I think the biggest regret is to get to the end of our lives and we say, wow, I'm not spent. I left all that talent on the table because I let these imaginary fears rule me. That's a recipe for heartbreak at the end of our lives.
Yeah. You do touch towards the end of the book, you do move to mortality and contemplating our mortality, and you have the chapter on the greatest regrets of people on their deathbed. And can you talk about that? How powerful is it for us to live in acknowledgement of our mortality?
Well, I think I try to get intimate with my death every single day. I don't do it every day, Ross, but I really think about my death on a regular basis. My new thing, my family just thinks I'm bizarre, you know. I mean, it's like I've got this new thing. It's 25 Christmases. I mean, what are you talking, you know? But it's when I'm faced with the decision, I might have 25, if I'm lucky, I have 25 Christmases left in my life. Maybe more, maybe less. I mean, it's quite an assumption to think we're even going to live 25 more years. Death happens every day. So connecting with your mortality is not depressing. I think it's inspiring because then you start living to the point. You just, you walk into a restaurant, the meal's great, you go and you hug the chef. So what if they think you're crazy? You want to write a screenplay? You say, I'm going to write my screenplay. I'll get up a little earlier to write my screenplay. You want to buy a book or something nice for yourself, you do it because. So I think it's really important to live to the point and connect with the shortness of life, especially when it comes to doing amazing work and pushing your magic into the world, and especially when it comes to taking risks, and especially when it comes to human beings. I mean, how many words of love remain unsaid until it's too late? I can't tell you how many people, in the book, that chapter, one of the regrets of people on their deathbeds, I wish I'd been kinder. So it's like, oh, we don't want to be rejected, so we don't tell people we love them. We don't give the praise. We don't wear our hearts on our sleeves. And then it's too late and we regret not having said it, especially with our parents. So yes, connecting with our mortality is powerful.
Yes. Thank you. Another key point, I mean, this is speaking to productivity and accelerating our goals in our life, but you also are very huge on striking that necessary balance in terms of taking time for rest and renewal and doing things that are fun and that we enjoy. How do those two interplay?
It's a great question, and you're right. It's a big through line through the Everyday Hero Manifesto because in one of the chapters I say, I do not subscribe to this hustle and grind culture. I don't know about you, but how often do you hear like hustle and grind? I'll sleep when I'm dead. I think that was Ben Franklin who said it. If you're not using every minute grinding, then you're just a big loser. And it's right. But Picasso worked really hard and then he played really hard. A lot of the great artists, a lot of the great entrepreneurs, they work really hard and they rest really hard. So rest is not a luxury. Rest is a necessity. And you do your best work when you're rested. And so what I encourage in the book is have these seasons or weeks or hours in the day where when you work, bring it on. Get into this tight bubble of total focus. You can change the world or you can play with your phone. You can't do both. So when you work like it's the last day you can possibly work. Work with intensity, but then pull back and recover. Even when I write the book, I've got this idea that I talked about, the 5 great hours rule. I'd write the book for 5 hours and intensely. No one could find me. I'd get lost. I'd go into flow state, not every day, but consistently I'd go into flow state. When I finished, I would nap. I would go for a mountain bike ride. I'd read. I'd cook for my family, probably not very well, but they tell me it's pretty good, you know. But that's so then the next day I'd be refreshed. My willpower would be strong. I'd be enthusiastic. Even I finished the book. It came out in Canada roughly 2.5 weeks ago. I'm going to take the next little while off, and I'm going to read. I've got all these books I bought, and um, Haruki Murakami, the Japanese novelist, um, he once said, "When I'm not writing my novel, is when I'm writing my next novel." And I think that's important. It's like the recovery time is when you are not only regenerating your spirit and your body and your mind and your emotions, it's when you're incubating your next level of ideas. So rest is important.
Yeah, yeah. Chapter 56 is titled The Possibilitarian Secret. And it's such a beautiful story you tell of the note from your father that highlights the two Sanskrit characters, one for funeral pyre and the other one for worry. Can you share that message with us that your father sent you?
Absolutely. So my dad, when I left home to work with a law firm in Toronto, from the East Coast, I'm from Nova Scotia. So when I left, he used to send me a lot of handwritten letters. It was really, really beautiful. And there was always wisdom in them. My dad's been a great mentor in my life. And in one of them that you're speaking to, he said, the Sanskrit character for funeral pyre is strikingly similar to the Sanskrit character for worry. And he said, the only difference is there's a dot over the Sanskrit character. But essentially, he said, that shouldn't surprise you because one burns the dead while the other burns the living. So, that's the kind of stuff I grew up with. Right.
Beautiful, beautiful. One of the other key things, and this, I mean, in today's age, I mean, we're living in a strange time. The chapter 90, the necessity of artistic unpopularity. We're living in a time when, fame and is just for fame's sake, and people don't seem to be as worried in general about the quality or what they're having to say. So I was really inspired by this chapter, the necessity of artistic unpopularity. And you tell the story about Sinead O'Connor on Saturday Night Live. Can you just speak to this point in general?
Absolutely. I think the nature of beautiful work is it will disrupt and challenge the status quo. J.K. Rowling said, "For some to love you, some must loathe you." And so I talk about the Damien Hirst art in the book. I talk about some of the other great artists who their work was so beautiful and it was so disruptive to what people thought was normal, which is a definition of magic, right? It's a definition of great art. It should terrify the status quo, but the status quo doesn't like it. So they will troll you. They will try to cancel you. So I think it's really important not to do your work. And the term I use is masterwork. And related to that is we live in a world where people are almost encouraged to push 1,000 mediocrities versus spending the time, maybe years, maybe a lifetime, Ross, doing your Sistine Chapel ceiling, your masterwork. And even if your masterwork is laughed at, misunderstood, and you're ridiculed and humiliated. If you have done your very best, put your heart, soul in it, tried to put out the best possible quality and followed your heart, I think that's the biggest victory. I mean, I think of Vincent van Gogh, and there was a recent movie with Willem Dafoe where he played Van Gogh. And there's a scene of Van Gogh in the mental hospital, and the head of the mental hospital holds this drawing of Vincent van Gogh and says, "Vince, do you really think this is art?" And Vincent van Gogh said, "Yes, I think it's beautiful." And he's laughed at. I think he only sold one piece of art in his lifetime. Then he dies, and the world realizes, look at the magic of his art.
That's another key principle is you speak to throughout the book is having this ability to block out the hostile and critical voices. Are there some practices that you've learned that are really effective for doing that?
Don't read Amazon reviews. Yeah. I'd say so. There's a chapter in the book called "The Troll Deconstruction," and that's based on me trying to figure out how do you deal with these people who don't get what you've tried to do. And so there's a deconstruction that will help people do it. But just really practically, I would say, again, like don't read a lot of the reviews. Trust you did your best. Life will do the rest. I would say just fill your mind with great dreams so there's no room for petty worries. Like just stay busy on your mission. Forget about what people think. I would say journaling is very powerful. Often I will write about the man I want to become. I'll do affirmations and mantras in my journal. I'll do pre-commitment strategies. So I think that's important. I also just understanding is powerful because awareness precedes transformation. And understanding, I don't know about you, but if there's a book I don't like, I've never gone on to Instagram and said, by the way, I can't stand your book.
Yeah.
Like someone who does that, I think doesn't have a lot to do and isn't in a good place in their life. And when you start understanding, and then also the awareness of great art is misunderstood. So not everyone's going to get what you're doing, and not everyone's going to like what you're doing. Not everyone likes vanilla ice cream.
I think we have time for one more of my questions before we get to our audience questions. And I think overall, this book it's very vulnerably written. I'm just very curious because in your four major communication, I forget the title of the chapter. I don't have it right in front of me. You talk about the four major modes of communication for great leadership. And one of those is raw vulnerability. For you personally, is that something that over your career doing this, you've become more vulnerable and found the power in that? I'm just wondering how that's worked in your life.
It's a great question. The more I've suffered, the more Rumi said it well. He said, keep breaking your heart until it opens. So the more difficulties I've gone through, the more the shell of the ego gets cracked, and the more intimate I become with, what I really want to stand for and the person that I truly am. Related to that, it's not only that I've gone through a lot of difficulty that I write about in the Everyday Hero Manifesto, but I've done a lot of healing over these past 25 years. I've been in sweat lodges. I meditate every day. I write in a journal. I have spiritual counselors. I take acupuncture. I do hypnotherapy. Like it just goes on and on. And the reality is, healing works. Prayer works. Meditation works. Mantras work. Journaling works. Working with spiritual counselors works. So that has allowed me to feel safer as a human being, safer in my relationships. And the book is just a relationship with my readers. So that has allowed me to be as vulnerable as I have been. I'm not hiding, not that I was hiding behind characters in the 5M Club or in The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, but I just, so what if people judge me? That's not my issue. So I think that's important. Then I think of Carl Rogers, his idea, what is most personal is most universal. So when you, as an artist, we're all artists, no matter what you're a coder, you're an artist. If you're a CEO, you're an artist. The more personal we can be, the more we will speak to the universal challenges we all face as human beings. And I wrote this book ultimately to serve. So I thought I better be really vulnerable.
Yeah, that shines through as your motivation for all that you do. And you even said that to me at the beginning, how excited you were. I mean, just so everybody knows, Robin is here. He's in Rome. It's evening in Rome, and he took the time to speak to Banyan Books, and he said, anything I can do to serve the Banyan Books community today, that's what I want to do. So, uh, you know, I wonder if you, before we get to these great questions from people, you could just speak a little bit to the power of having that mentality of service.
When I was growing up, my dad used to say, Robin, when you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. He said, son, live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice. And if anyone's looking for a secret of joy, it's live for something larger than yourself, live for other people. And there's nothing wrong with getting nice things for yourself and taking nice trips when it's safe to do so. And, we're human. Having said that, to do your work and live your life in a way that makes people happier, to live your life as a testimony to possibility, so you inspire people, to serve people, to do beautiful things for your family and your community, to do your part to build a better world, it's so fulfilling, it's so beautiful. And I do believe, at this stage of my life, Ross, I really believe in karma as never before. And I think it was, I'm sure this Banyan sold really had success with this book, but do you remember the Celestine prophecy years ago?
Yes.
And I think it was and I'm sure it was in that book. As you increase your vibration, the pace of synchronicity shows up. And so, like, when you give, the most amazing magic starts to enter your life. And I think service is the key to leadership. Service is the key to spiritual freedom. Service is the key to joy. Service, I think, will decrease your inflammation, so you live longer.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. We've got some good questions here. The first one is from Julie. Julie says, I love this session. Thank you, Robin. I would love to show the recording to my son. And just to let everybody know, the recording will be up on our YouTube channel and all the podcasting platforms, the audio version. So look out for that. Subscribe. Just look for Banyan Books in Conversation. So she said, I'd love to show the recording to my son because I think this will inspire him to read your book. Do you have any recommendations for teenagers? He's 18, at that searching time for self.
Well, I would say, first of all, what a great parent to try to give books to youth. I mean, that's incredible. All it takes is one book to change a life. So a lot of teenagers have loved the 5 a.m. Club because it's written as a story. I would say Meditations from Marcus Aurelius might be a little heavy. You know what would be a great book? The Alchemist.
Yeah.
That'd be a great book for a 17-year-old. It can appear very simple on first reading, but 30 reads later, you realize, Paulo Coelho has some great wisdom.
Agreed. There's a question from Carl, and I think this is a big one these days, and you do touch on it in the book, is any advice for dealing with internet or other addictions that may distract us from our aims?
There's a lot in the book on that. I would say, first of all, the 5 great hours rule, 5 hours a day in the tight bubble of total focus, turn off all your devices. It's really powerful to actually turn your devices off or put them in a little baggie or put them in another room. Sometimes people put them in the trunk of their car. but it's really important to be very intentional. Even a written schedule. I've been traveling, so my schedule is not as calibrated as usual, but that's sort of my schedule for the week. And just by writing out your schedule, it's what willpower researchers call a pre-commitment strategy. And so you can actually say, 8 o'clock to 3, 0 technology zone, where you're going to do real work versus fake work. Secondly, when we're not rested, we try to escape in technology. So get enough rest, make sure you get lots of exercise. Thirdly, remember that it's an addiction. It's the dopamine loop. So find ways to replace the surfing online. Go for a walk, make a family dinner, read a book, do some painting, work in a garden. But the interesting thing is, so much of our surfing and our TV watching and those things, we do it for recreation, but it actually makes us feel more exhausted after we finish doing it.
Thank you. We have a question from Arlene. She says, can you give examples of the top priorities one might build a life around? What are yours? I think she's referring to the lifetime big five.
Brilliant question. So some of them could be personal development, personal growth. That would be a great priority to build the rest of your life around, because to me, everything depends on your self-identity and the way you see the world. Another big five priority could be family. It certainly is one of mine. I started reading obituaries over the past number of years, and I've never seen an obituary that said, he or she died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by their stockbroker, lawyer, and golf partner. Always, he died peacefully in their sleep, surrounded by the colleagues that respected her, the friends who adored her, and the family that cherished her. So family would be a great priority. I love this French word, aesthete. It's a lover of beauty. It's a great priority. No matter where you go, look for beauty, even in hidden places. That'd be a great priority. To be a master of your craft. You're right, Ross. Like I take my craft very, very seriously, and I try to keep it. I really worked so hard on this new book. Like I tried to have every line perfect, all the models, everything, because it's my craft, and it gives me great joy to try to do my work as best as I possibly can and help people. So that would be a great priority. And then to be a servant leader, or someone who's, I stood in Nelson Mandela's prison cell a number of years ago, and I asked the guy who knew him, I said, what was he like? And he said, oh, that man was a humble servant. That would be a great priority.
Thank you. There's another good question from Taryn, who says, do you have heart set, soul set, health set, and mindset mentors that you can recommend who are actively working with people? And she says, other than you, of course, that's just a given. She says, for example, a therapist, a scientist, or a meditation teacher that you love.
Well, what comes to mind is some of the apps that I use, there or podcasts that I use as well. There's a great meditation app that I go to on a regular basis. It's called Meditation Oasis. And what I love about it is most of the meditation, I don't know, but a lot of the what do you think, Ross? But a lot of the meditation apps are 5-minute meditations. I need longer.
Yeah.
And so what she does is she does 20 to 30 minutes. Meditation Oasis, really good resource. For spiritual, I pray. Praying is very, very powerful. I've met holy people on my trips in different countries, and done sessions with them. That was incredible. I'm not giving medical advice, but what was very powerful for me, I was in Boulder, Colorado, and I had a sweat lodge that was set up by the leaders of the native community or indigenous community, and I sweat out a lot of things that I needed to forgive. So that was powerful. And again, books are incredible mentors for me. Like, if you could see this hotel room I'm in, there's like books over there. So that's powerful. Yeah. Journal, Get your journal. Get to know yourself in your journal.
Awesome. Thank you. Anna says, what were some of the things that you used to do before you reached the tipping point moment in your career where the snowball effect started happening? So what were some of the things you used to do before you reached that point?
And do you think that means what are some of the practices that I did that helped me? Or
I think so. I think that's what she means.
I would say, well, journaling has always been incredibly powerful for me. When I'm confused, like a lot of people say, Robin, how do I find my calling? The more you can start journaling, you'll go from the confusion to clarity. So journaling early in the morning is powerful. Getting up early, joining the 5 a.m. club is incredibly powerful. Take 1 minute for 1 hour for yourself. I call it the victory hour. Spend that hour reading, strengthening yourself, praying, meditating, writing in a journal, listening to podcasts, that kind of thing. So that'll help you find clarity. I talk to a lot of people. Conversations are incredibly valuable, right? Asking people, okay, when I was a lawyer, but I didn't really love it. I had this angst. What a great word, angst. I talk to a lot of people. Okay, you seem to be happy. What is it that you do? You seem to be unhappy. What are you so unhappy about? Um, I was doing yoga at that time of my life, so yoga helped. Meditation, I mentioned, really, really helped. And again, like reading has been such a great. So I come from very simple beginnings. And anything I needed to learn, I just learned in a book. My library is one of my most prized assets.
Thank you for that. There's one more question that we have time for, and that's from Darini, who says, thank you so much for this session. Great to hear from Mr. Sharma. The tips about technology are helpful. I wonder if they could be tailored for parents of teenage boys who are especially vulnerable to the addictive and seductive nature of technology. I'm wondering if you have any tips about tailoring these practices towards teenage boys.
Well, I mean, my kids are in their 20s now, but for a number of years when we moved in a new house, I think it was 3 years, we didn't have a TV, and they read so many books, it was unbelievable. We just have rules. I mean, when we have a family dinner, we don't play with our phones. We don't do that. I think it's disrespectful, and I think children need our attention and time, and we need to be with our kids as well. So I would say family meals or any meal with technology free. I would say turn off the TV. I would say set really clear boundaries. And maybe the teenagers are going to say, well, everyone does it. Everyone has their phones. Like, how are we going to function if we're not checking our phone every second? You just go, yeah, but that's not the way we're going to roll in this house. We're going to read, or we're going to talk. We're going to mountain bike together. So setting these boundaries is important. Educating the kids on the addiction and, what happens to people when they're just living and breathing technology. I mean, one of the traits of geniuses, all geniuses had a practiced ability to spend hours and hours alone thinking about their biggest problem. So you will not get into what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called, he coined it. He was from University of Chicago. He called it flow state. And I talked about it in the 5am club, transient hypofrontality. That's when you enter that secret cognitive universe of genius. Every one of us has this ability. But if every second we're distracted because of our phones, checking notifications, we're never going to do our best work, and we're never going to change the world. So related to that, I'd even say, even when they use their technology, tell them you don't need every app in the world. You don't need to be entertained by every app. Find things that are real entertainment, real regeneration. Turn off your notifications. Turn off all the noises. Like I on my phone, we're doing this interview with my phone. I don't have noises on the whatever you call them, the beeps and the bells, and some of them I've heard them. It's like a radar. Why would you infect the beauty of your days with all of these noises. Like I don't think that's very beautiful.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you for that. There's a note from Jacob for you, Robin, who's Jacob's our producer for anyone who doesn't know. He says, from these audience questions, it sounds like there might be a demand for a Robin Sharma book geared specifically to teens.
Oh, it's a good idea.
Yeah. And we've got
Thanks, Jacob.
yeah. We've got just a nice piece of feedback from Lindsay who says, not a question, but thank you. This webinar had divine timing for me today. Thank you very much. I will be buying your book. This is very synchronistic. Grateful. Thank you. Everything really resonates.
Privilege.
Now, maybe we can leave our audience not the final chapter, but the second to last chapter, chapter 100. You said it's titled "Be Not a Dreamer." Be not a dream postponer. And you
Mhm.
said, "Don't put off your heart's most precious dreams." I'm just wondering if you can speak to us today, anything that might help us inspire to live according to our heart's calling, starting today.
Sure. Well, that chapter, I was stuck in traffic, and this elderly gentleman drives by in a convertible. He looked like he was loving life, and on his license plate it said "Time for Fun." And isn't it interesting? So often we don't take travels until we're too old to take the travel. And so that second to last chapter is "Be Not a Dream Postponer." How do you start living your dreams? You stop making excuses, because beneath every excuse lives a fear. And people sometimes go, "But Robin, that's so easy." Building a great life isn't easy. Building a great relationship isn't easy. Transcending tragedy isn't easy. Being kind when you're angry isn't easy. Doing masterwork isn't easy. Honoring your values isn't easy. So I would say, number one, remember how short life is. Number two, remember those micro victories. Little acts every day get you to a tsunami of change over time. Number three, one of the greatest routes or pathways into joy is the consistent doing of difficult things. Society says, "Oh, live a life of ease," but we're never happy doing that. It's when we do difficult books or difficult projects, or overcome a difficult relationship challenge, or get healthy when we were struggling. Those are the things that bring us our greatest joy, because then we get a glimpse of our heroic self, and we build intimacy with who we truly are. And I think that's one of the greatest secrets of happiness, or not secrets, but truths around happiness.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Robin Sharma. It's just been really a privilege to have you with us here today. I'm so grateful, and I'm sure everyone in the Banyan community is, that you took the time to be with us today. So thank you so much.
Ross, it was really fun. And Jacob, the unsung hero, thank you very much. And everyone who's watching, I just thank you for your time. I hope it was helpful, and keep up the great work at Banyan. I'm a big fan.
Yes, thank you. Everybody follow our podcast. Look for Banyan Books in Conversation, share it around, and look for this recording to come out and share it around with everybody. His book is called The Everyday Hero Manifesto, and you can buy it at banyan.com. Again, thank you for joining us, Robin.
Thanks a lot, Ross.